Have you ever noticed how some Bible stories get told over and over while others are quietly skipped? We hear about David and Goliath, Daniel in the lion's den, but what about the stories that are messy, uncomfortable, and maybe even a little scandalous? Today, we're diving into one of those stories story mini sermons won't touch. This is the story of Tamar. Now, to understand Tamar, we need to go back to the book of Genesis, chapter 38. This chapter is sandwiched right between the dramatic story of Joseph being sold into slavery and his rise to power in Egypt. It almost feels like a random interruption, but trust me, it's there for a powerful reason. Our story starts with Judah, one of Jacob's 12 sons. He separates from his brothers, marries a Canaanite woman, and has 3 sons, Onan and Shelah. Judah finds a wife for his firstborn. Her name is Tamar. The Bible tells us that was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and so the Lord put him to death. Just like that, Tamar is a widow, childless, and in a very vulnerable position in ancient society. A woman's security and future depended almost entirely on her husband and her sons. Without them, she had nothing. But there was a law called levirate marriage. If a man died without children, his brother was supposed to marry the widow to provide an heir for his deceased brother. This wasn't just about family duty. It was about justice and provision for the widow. It was about continuing the family line and ensuring the dead brother's name and inheritance were lost. So Judah tells his second son Onan, "Go to your brother's wife, perform your duty as a brother, and raise up offspring for your brother." But Onan is selfish. He knows that any child born wouldn't be considered his heir. The inheritance would go to his deceased brother's line, not his own. So while he outwardly agrees, he secretly ensures that Tamar does not conceive. The Bible says what he did was wicked, and so God took his life as well. Now, Tamar has lost 2 husbands. The situation is tragic and desperate. Judah has 1 son left. According to custom, he should be given to Tamar. But Judah is afraid. He thinks maybe Tamar is the problem. Maybe she's cursed. I can't risk my last son. So he makes an excuse. He tells Tamar, "Go back to your father's house and live as a widow until my son Shelah grows up." But the text hints that Judah had no intention of ever giving Shelah to her. He was sending her away to be forgotten. Years go by. Tamar waits patiently. Shelah grows up, but Judah never calls for her. She sees him getting on with his life, while hers is in limbo. She has been cast aside, her rights denied, and her future stolen. She is an invisible woman, a victim of broken promises and patriarchal fear. She could have stayed silent, accepted her fate, and faded into obscurity. But Tamar was not a woman to be silenced. She realizes that the system that was meant to protect her has failed her. Her father-in-law, the patriarch, Judah, the very man responsible for her care and for upholding justice, has abandoned his duty. So Tamar decides to take matters into her own hands. This is where the story takes a shocking and controversial turn. Tamar hears that Judah is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep. This was often a time of festival and celebration. She takes off her widow's clothes, covers herself with a veil, and sits by the entrance to a town on the road to Timnah. She disguises herself as a prostitute. Why? Because she knows Judah. She knows his character. Sure enough, Judah sees her. He doesn't recognize his own daughter-in-law. He propositions her. Tamar, thinking strategically, asks, "What will you give me?" He offers a young goat from his flock. But she's smarter than that. She needs proof. She needs leverage. She says, "Okay, but what will you give me as a pledge until you send the goat?" Judah, acting on impulse, asks what she wants. She replies, "Your seal and its cord, and the staff that is in your hand." Think about what she's asking for. This isn't just random jewelry. The seal, the cord, and the staff were like a man's signature, his credit card, and his ID all rolled into one. They were unique symbols of his identity and authority. In a moment of recklessness, he hands him over. So Judah goes in to her, and she conceives. Tamar then returns home, takes off her disguise, and puts her widow's clothes back on. A little later, Judah sends his friend with the goat to pay the prostitute and get his pledge back. But the woman is nowhere to be found. The locals say there's never been a prostitute in that area. Judah, embarrassed and wanting to avoid a public scandal, says, "Let her keep the items. Otherwise, we'll become a laughingstock. He's more concerned about his reputation than his personal effects or his broken promise. About 3 months later, word gets back to Judah. Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has been unfaithful, and moreover, she is pregnant. Judah is filled with self-righteous fury. The hypocrisy is staggering. He, who just slept with a supposed prostitute, is now ready to condemn his daughter-in-law for a similar act. He declares, "Bring her out and let her be burned." This was the severe punishment for a priest's daughter who was unfaithful. And as the head of his clan, Judah was acting as judge and jury. This is the climax of the story. Tamar is brought out, facing a horrific death sentence based on the judgment of the very man who wronged her. But Tamar has been waiting for this moment. She doesn't cry or beg. She doesn't even defend herself verbally at first. Instead, she sends a message to a friend. She presents the items she secured as a pledge to seal, the cord and the staff. And she sends a powerful, damning message. "I am pregnant by the man to whom these belong. Please identify them. Whose are these? The seal, the cord, and the staff." Imagine that moment. The public accusation. The undeniable proof. Judah's caught. There is no escape. The evidence of his own identity is staring him in the face, exposing his hypocrisy, his irresponsibility, and his sin. And in that moment of public humiliation, something incredible happens. Judah doesn't make excuses. He doesn't try to lie his way out of it. He looks at the evidence and he makes a public declaration. He says, "She is more righteous than I, since I did not give her to my son Shelah." Stop and think about the weight of that confession. A powerful patriarch in front of his whole community admits that his powerless, widowed daughter-in-law is more righteous than he is. He acknowledges his failure, his broken promise, and her justification. Tamar wasn't trying to be promiscuous. She was fighting for the justice that was denied her. She used the only means available to her to secure her future and her right to an heir within Judah's family line, the very thing he had promised and then withheld. Tamar's story is a story of courage in the face of injustice. It's about a woman who refused to be a passive victim. She was wronged by a system and by the men who were supposed to protect her. So she took a massive risk to expose the truth and claim her rights. Her methods were unconventional and shocking, but her motive was justice. And the story doesn't end there. Tamar gives birth to twin boys, Perez and Zerah. And this is the most mind-blowing part of the entire narrative. The line of Perez, the son born from this controversial union, becomes the direct ancestral line of King David. And it doesn't stop there. If you trace the genealogy of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew, you will find 4 women mentioned by name from the Old Testament. One of them is Tamar. That's right. The woman with the scandalous story, the one who took justice into her own hands, is an ancestor of the Messiah. God chose to weave this messy, uncomfortable story into his grand plan of redemption. He took a situation born of deceit, hypocrisy, and desperation, and brought forth the royal line of his chosen people. So, why don't we hear this story in sermons more often? Maybe because it's messy. It does unfit into a neat little box of good guys and bad guys. Tamar's actions are morally complex. Judah's actions are deeply hypocritical. But maybe that's the point. The Bible isn't a collection of stories about perfect people. It's a collection of stories about flawed, broken people who God uses in powerful and unexpected ways. Tamar's story is a testament to the fact that God sees those who are forgotten. He defends the marginalized and the oppressed. And he can work through even our most desperate and questionable choices to bring about his perfect will. It challenges us to look beyond surface-level morality and see the deeper themes of justice, redemption, and God's sovereign grace. It's a story that forces us to confront uncomfortable truths, not just about the characters, but about ourselves and the God who writes our stories. So, the next time you're reading through Genesis, don't skip chapter 38. It's not an interruption. It's a crucial part of the story. It's the story of Tamar, a woman of incredible courage and a powerful reminder that God as righteousness can be found in the most unexpected of places. Thanks for watching. If this story impacted you, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories the Bible does and always want to tell. See you next time.